Hi everyone, today I'll be teaching you how to shade with fineliners, or you might call it technical pens. Well, so what I'll be teaching you guys how to shade is a little bit different than other fineliner artists, and what we'll be using is a technical pen or a fineliner. So a cheaper option will be a unit pen fineline or Sakura Micron, but a more expensive option might be Copic Multiliner SP. And let's put these aside. So let's start with how usually artists shade with a fineliner. So usually when we're shading, we just draw very firm lines like this. Okay, and then let's go with something like this. Alright, so yeah, usually artists with fineliners, they would just draw very firm and straight lines, and it's pretty good, and it's a very usual skill that artists use, and how they make different of shading is by controlling the space between each line and how many layers they want to be. For example, if it's a light shading, then they'll create much more separate lines, and if they want to make something much darker, then they might go with very tight lines and then multiple layers to really create this dark shading. Alright, so what I do differently is I'll usually start with a very faint line. So I don't usually start from very firm lines. I'll just go with something very faint, and to really control how you grip the pen, just make it loose, make it very loose, and then you create these very faint lines. You might not see it clearly in the camera, but then if I want something like a darker shading, then I'll just add multiple layers, layer by layer. Maybe on the darker side of the drawing, I'll add more pressure and just go deeper here. So really control it. So you can see this gradient from very light to dark. And what I like about this is it looks more natural how the shadings go, and also it's this goes much more smoother. If you go from a very firm lines, then you can clearly see where you layered the lines together. But here it's like everything's sort of random, but you can see how you can't see a fine line when the lines become darker or when it becomes lighter, and this is nice. I really like how to do this. So the pros and the cons of doing this. So the pros is that, well, like I said, it's much smoother, the gradient, and I can create more details in the drawing. So for example, in this drawing, I like to draw small, I don't like to draw on big paper, and in this paper, it's not big, but I still want to maintain a certain amount of details. That's why here, for example, in this window, you can see this texture of lines, but it's not dark. It's very light over it, and it is very hard to do that with a usual technical pen skill. And also, using this sort of skill, you can try to create this kind of pen stroke, like a brush stroke instead. You can create some interesting things with it, and you can try to manipulate how it looks, and really tricks people to think of other ways. So the cons is it's hard to control, and because pens you don't usually know how the ink comes out every time you start drawing. Well, sometimes you might get these very firm lines from the pen, and sometimes you might just get it very loose, and you don't know it. That's why every time I start drawing, I'll get a piece of random paper. And what about it is, well, you can test out how do you want to draw your things, first of all. If you're not sure, what do you really, how do you want to draw this part, then you can test it out on a piece of paper like this. Another thing is you can test out how the pen works. So I'll usually just go loose, don't break your pen, but go loose, see how the ink comes out, and if you feel it, so when you're drawing on your actual piece, you know how the ink comes out. So really just feel your pen. And so now you know that you might want to go looser here, maybe. Or maybe you want to go more firmly here. You can feel the pen and then just see how it goes. So you'll make so it's harder for you to make mistakes, and you don't want to, when you're drawing very loose things, you want to draw a very light shading and suddenly becomes a very dark line in the middle of other very light shadings. You don't want that. And it's also another cons of this is it's very time consuming. Well, because how many layers you do on each work, because you always start with very thin lines. You always go from very thin lines like this. Then you add more layers. You always add more layers. Usually you go for more than maybe 10 layers on top to get a really dark line. And for example, in this muscle drawing here, I'll usually start with how the muscle goes. See how the lines where it goes towards, and you really start very thin lines, and then you go add more layers to it, and you get these very nice gradient, and from light to dark. It's very time consuming, but I think you'll get a very good result if you spend time in it, and just, you know, your work will pay off. And if you're really trying to go with something dark, I'll go with a BS pen, like a brush tip. So you can really draw a dark line if you really need a shade. dark shade like this, and usually what I'll do is you'll work from it, and then you're just slowly making this transition from this very dark line to thinner, something like this. So yeah, I guess this is it of the video, and if you need any help, if you have any questions, just comment or let me know, and I can help you with it. Or if you're interested with more how to draw with like my kind of way of using mechanical pens, you can also let me know. And thank you for watching.